Turning 30 should have been a milestone, a symbol of achievement, maturity, proof that life was finally on track. But for me, my 30th birthday was the beginning of the end. My name is Megan Marks, and this is my story. I woke up that morning with sunlight filtering through the cracks in the curtains of the bedroom I grew up in. The light painted soft stripes across the pink walls my mother never wanted to redecorate, as if time had stood still. I looked around and felt the thick silence that always hung over that house. No smell of coffee, no hurried footsteps. Nothing, just the muffled sound of my own heartbeat. 30 years old, no message from my parents, no happy birthday, no gesture, not even a different look. I took a deep breath and went down to the kitchen, trying to convince myself they might be planning something. A surprise. A special breakfast, maybe. Foolish. My mother was sitting at the table, lazily swiping her finger across her phone screen. My father, as always, was reading the printed newspaper like it was still 1995. They didn't even look up. "Good morning," I murmured, trying to hide the disappointment clawing at my insides. "Good morning, Megan," my mother replied, eyes still on her phone. Not another word. I made coffee for myself. Silence. The sound of the kettle felt like it was screaming in the kitchen. Since I was 22, when I started working in digital marketing and picking up freelance gigs in social media and SEO, I had been the one supporting that house. My parents lost everything in the 2008 crisis. First the car, then the health insurance. Finally, their pride, but not appearances. They pretended nothing had changed, even after they mortgaged the house a second time. They kept hosting dinners with influential neighbors, smiling in church on Sundays, going on trips to Florida, all paid for with my contracts. They said it was an emotional loan, that one day they'd repay me with love and gratitude. But love doesn't pay the home insurance. Recognition doesn't keep food in the fridge. What started as temporary support became routine. The just this month lasted 8 years. They never asked with guilt, always with expectation. "Sweetheart, you can find a quick freelance job, right? You're so good with this internet stuff, Megan. Can't you get us a bit more money?" And I gave in, because I thought it was my role, because I felt sorry, because deep down, I wanted them to love me the way they pretended to, between one debt and the next. That night, August 8th, my mother made dinner. Rice, roast chicken, and a salad that looked like it came straight out of a supermarket bag. Nothing special, no balloons, no cake. "Happy birthday," my father said between bites without looking at me. "Thanks," I murmured, swallowing hard. I expected at least a gesture, a card, a thank you for keeping us alive all these years. But what came next was something no amount of therapy could have prepared my heart to hear. After dinner, my mother cleared the plates. My father stood up, dragged his chair back with a screech, and looked me in the eye. "Megan," he said, with that deep voice he used when announcing something important. "It's time for you to move on with your life. We're going to rent out your room. We think it's for the best." I blinked a few times, trying to figure out if I'd heard right. "Excuse me?" "You need to leave, Megan. It's not healthy to be stuck in your parents' house for so long." You're kicking me out?" My voice came out hoarse, low, like something had broken in my throat. My mother walked into the room at that moment, drying her hands on a dish towel. "It's not kicking you out, Megan. It's giving you freedom." I stood up slowly, like waking from a nightmare. Freedom? This house only has power because I paid the bill yesterday. She lowered her eyes, said nothing, just went back to the kitchen as if she were doing the dishes on any regular Tuesday. "I paid for your new car, paid for the TV, the food, the damn health plan. And we're grateful," my father said with that dry voice, the kind that never truly thanked anyone. "You pretend I don't exist until you need money. And now on my birthday you tell me to leave? You're an adult, Megan. You need to learn to stand on your own 2 feet." I laughed, a bitter, crooked laugh. "With my own 2 feet, I've carried both of you for 8 years. No one answered. My mother stacked plates. My father went back to his newspaper, as if that conversation was just another footnote in their day. I went up to my room, still decorated with teenage posters and a desk full of bills paid in my name, and grabbed my backpack. I packed the essentials: laptop, charger, a change of clothes, my passport. Maybe because in that moment, fleeing to another country felt less painful than staying in the same city. I went downstairs quietly. The door clicked shut behind me with a sound deeper than I expected. Outside, the air was cold, the sky clear, and my soul in ruins. I sat at the bus stop bench with my backpack by my side and looked at the house where I'd spent my whole life. That white facade with planters full of fake flowers, that freshly painted fence, paid for with the money I sent last Friday, that window where my mom used to wait for me to come home from school, now empty. It felt like staring at a body without a soul. In my mind, a storm. I replayed every bill paid, every half-hearted thank you, every fake smile at family gatherings where they said, "Megan still lives with us, poor thing." As if I were a burden, a nuisance, never the lifeline I had been. Sitting there alone, I realized I wasn't a daughter. I was the bank. And if I was the one funding their party, maybe it was time to turn off the lights, cut the music, and send everyone home. Because if I paid for the life they lived, I could also decide when it ended. They lived like royalty. An elegant upper-middle-class couple in suburban Utah with flawless appearances, sharp smiles, and a perfectly tidy home. No one would ever guess that everything inside, every fork, every brick, every square inch heated in the winter, was funded by my freelance gigs and sporadic contracts. I was the hardworking daughter, the modern, entrepreneurial one, as they like to say, with that mocking tone thinly veiled as pride. "Megan just loves to help," they'd repeat at dinners and church whenever someone asked how they were getting by after the hard years of the recession. Loved to help. That was the mantra. A phrase repeated so often I almost started to believe it myself. But the truth? It was just too convenient. Letting me pay for everything spared them from facing reality. And more than that, it kept them on the pedestal they had always stood on. It was an unfair trade. I paid the bills, and in return got silence, omission, and ultimately, abandonment. The credit card used to buy my mother's new car? It was in my name. Signed with my tired handwriting, filled out with my account info, and tied to an interest rate I pretended not to notice. She said she needed a decent car, so she wouldn't be embarrassed at the grocery store. I said, okay, just for this month, even though I knew the payments would last for years. Netflix? My account. The password was Meg4Help, which always felt like a cruel joke. The internet? Came out of my account every third of the month, along with the home insurance, gas, garbage, and the automatic delivery of gourmet coffee pods. Groceries? Every week, my mom placed an online order and chose Pay with Saved Card. The saved card, of course, was mine. The feeling of being exploited built up slowly, like dust behind the couch. I ignored it, told myself it was just a phase. That one day, they'd get back on their feet. That one day, they'd truly thank me. But the day they kicked me out felt like a slap that cut through all the years of sacrifice. The moment I found myself outside the house I grew up in, with a backpack on my shoulder and no plan, I saw everything with brutal clarity. It was like someone had switched on every light inside me, revealing all the dirt I had avoided facing. I found a room in a cheap motel on the outskirts of Salt Lake. A place with damp carpet, the smell of expired disinfectant, and a flickering bathroom light that felt straight out of a low-budget horror movie. I tossed my backpack onto the thin mattress, sat in the corner, and finally let myself fall apart. The tears came first, quiet, then the shaking hands. And finally, the anger. A deep, ancient anger from somewhere far below anything I'd ever accessed before. I grabbed my phone with trembling fingers and opened the banking app. The numbers jumped off the screen like a slap. Available balance, $3,121.46. Last transfer, $2,300. Destination, energy bill. Plus home insurance under the names James and Linda Marks. My parents, 2 days before my birthday, 2 days before they kicked me out. I took a deep breath, the kind of breath that comes before life-altering decisions. I went to the card manager, a quiet little feature hidden deep in the settings. There, listed one by one, were all the credit cards I had opened to help my parents over the years. All active, all recently used, all in my name. I tapped the first one. Freeze card. An alert popped up. Are you sure you want to freeze this card? Transactions will be declined immediately. I didn't hesitate. I clicked yes. One by one, I froze them. The car card, the grocery card, the pharmacy, the streaming, the wine subscription my mom insisted on keeping, the gas card my dad used, all of them. It was like pulling the life support from a body that had never seen me as a daughter, only as a source of funds. There was no guilt, only a strange peace. When the final card showed inactive, I set the phone down. I lay on that cheap motel bed and stared at the stained ceiling. Outside, the rain began to fall softly, as if even the sky wanted to cry with me. But there were no more tears. Just a sharp silence, the kind that only comes when you truly understand there's no going back. 2 hours later, my phone vibrated. Screen lit up. Name in bold, Dad. My heart jumped, not from longing, but from anticipation. The man who threw me out was now begging, his voice shaking. I answered on the third ring. Megan? The card was declined at the gas station. What happened? Did you cancel it? His voice, once so commanding, now carried urgency and panic. Each word seemed to trip over itself. This same father who, just 2 days earlier, had kicked me out of the house I had been funding, with the coldness of a landlord ending a lease, was now confused, alarmed, fragile. I took a deep breath. A small knot formed in my stomach, but my voice came out steady and measured. No, I just froze it, temporarily, the same way you did with me. Silence on the other end. A dense, unfamiliar silence. Maybe shame, maybe fear. This is ridiculous, Megan, we're your parents, he yelled, but the anger sounded hollow, like even he didn't believe what he was saying. I closed my eyes. The anger inside me throbbed, but it was cold now, controlled, lethal. And I'm the idiot who paid for your lives for nearly a decade. I heard him inhale sharply, a heavy sound, like a cornered animal searching for an escape that didn't exist. He didn't respond. He couldn't. For the first time, James Marks had no argument, no sermon, no excuse disguised as a moral lesson. I hung up before the silence could morph into another emotional blackmail. Later that night, while the motel room heater buzzed against the sharp Utah cold, a message popped up. Her name landed like a stone in my stomach. Mom. I opened it with a hesitant thumb. You're hurt, I understand. But we need you now. Need me? Now? Now it was convenient. Now that the cards were frozen. Now that their cushy life was beginning to crumble under their polished feet. Now, suddenly, I was useful. Not as a daughter, but as a provider. I rolled my eyes. Too late to understand. Where were they when I cried silently in the bathroom because I couldn't afford my own medical appointment? Because I had to cover theirs first. Where were they when I lied to friends, saying I couldn't go out because I had work, when in truth I was just trying to earn enough to keep two irresponsible adults in a bubble of comfort? The next morning, the domino effect began. First, the cable TV. I canceled it directly through the app. One click, an automatic notification, and poof. Silence in the living room. Goodbye premium channel marathons. My mother must have been panicking without her Sunday afternoon drama. Then the heating was cut. The bill had been overdue for 3 days, and without my autopay, the company shut it off. Nighttime temperatures in Utah aren't kind in late summer, and with autumn creeping in, the cold came without asking, a kind of cold I knew all too well. Then, the cleaning lady didn't show up. Just didn't come. Card declined. End of the free ride. And me, I just watched. Didn't move a muscle. Like a chess player watching the opponent's pieces fall one by one, each canceled service, each overdue notice. It was like pulling back invisible threads. Threads that had tied me to them for years, disguised as family bonds, but truly just burdens. But revenge tastes better when it comes with a lesson. And I hadn't even started teaching yet. 2 days later, the first desperate message came, from my cousin Rachel. Hey Meg, are your parents okay? Aunt Linda called me crying, said they're without power and that you canceled everything. Is that true? I sighed. Linda had begun doing what she always avoided, telling the truth. Because now, what once was pride had become desperation. I replied with a single neutral emoji. Then I took screenshots of every bill I'd paid over the years. The list was enormous. Over 100 receipts. From gas to beauty salons. I posted them in my private stories, visible only to close family. They said I was ungrateful, that I needed to leave, that it was time to move on. Well, here's what I paid, out of love, for 8 years. Without asking for anything in return, just affection, just presence, just a little recognition. It never came. The reaction was immediate. Calls, messages, church people sending Bible verses and prayers for peace, aunts trying to understand both sides. But their side was clear. Silence when it suited them. Conditional love, financial dependence disguised as family ties. And for the first time in a long time, my story was being heard, and more than that, believed. That night, a video call from a private number took me by surprise. I hesitated, but curiosity won. It was my father. He looked 10 years older, deep bags under his eyes, bloodshot, wearing the same sweater from Christmas 3 years ago, the one I bought him, which he never thanked me for. Megan, this has to stop. Your mother's not well. She's having anxiety attacks. You can't do this to us. We're family. Now we're family? When you kicked me out, what were we then? We were trying to help you grow, give you independence. No, you were draining me dry without ever looking at me as your daughter. You treated me like a walking ATM. And the worst part? You made me feel guilty for not being able to keep up. He ran his hand over his face. Fell silent for a few seconds. We messed up, okay? We messed up. But what now? Are you just going to leave us here with nothing? I stared at the screen. The flickering motel lamp reflected off my face. I'm not going to let you freeze to death. I'm not like you, but I'm also not the idiot who bankrolls the entire play while being denied the lead role. He looked at me like he was seeing a stranger. And in a way, he was. That submissive, guilty, fragile Megan died on my birthday. I hung up. But there was still one last step. The cruelest. The fairest. The one they feared most. Full exposure. In Salt Lake City, keeping a good reputation isn't just about pride, it's survival, it's status. It's the oxygen people breathe in social circles, in the white brick churches, and at neighborhood meetings where what's left unsaid matters more than what's actually said. And my parents, James and Linda Marks, were masters at that game. Our lawn was the neatest on the block. The Christmas lights twinkled with mathematical precision. The Instagram photos, taken with the phone I paid for, were edited with subtle filters that hinted at luxury and stability. My mother posed with glasses of Chilean wine, always with a witty caption and an inspirational hashtag, gratitude blessed. My father, in a polo shirt and a plastic smile, shared motivational quotes about leadership and divine providence, as if the life they lived was the result of their own merit, not of my drained bank account. But I knew the truth. I knew every cent, every lie, every omission. I knew that my mother's new car had overdue payments, that the mortgage was 2 months from default, and that although all the house bills were in their names, I was the one paying every single one, with passwords saved across dozens of websites, all tied to my account. I had the PDFs, the receipts, the ignored emails, even a spreadsheet tracking the accumulated expenses over the years, more than $78,000. And when they kicked me out on my 30th birthday, with a fake smile and a, maybe it's time for you to find your own way, I promised I would never again let the truth hide behind a wine photo or a fake blessing. That's how the account was born, an anonymous profile. Discreet, with no name, no specific location, just a simple bio. The truth behind appearances. Utah isn't as perfect as it seems. At first, I posted subtly. Nothing sensational, nothing illegal, but everything true. The first post was a simple comparison. On one side, a photo of my parents' house, decorated flawlessly for fall, with pumpkins stacked on the porch. On the other, a snippet of the mortgage statement, with the default notice highlighted. Caption: They say God provides, but it was the daughter they kicked out who paid the electricity bill for the last 3 years. The post picked up traction on local forums. The algorithm did its job. People from the neighborhood started commenting, still unsure who it was about, but recognizing the patterns. Looks like the Marks house. No way, could it be that family from church? Is this real? Does anyone know this story? I expected reactions, but not the avalanche. I started posting more, receipts with dates and amounts, a car insurance bill in my father's name, paid by me, a screenshot of Netflix with my account streaming on 3 different TVs. The little things no one notices, but together, they painted a brutal picture. Caption: The Marks, who pose with expensive wine, live in a house maintained by the daughter they kicked out on her birthday. The outrage was swift. Some people were shocked. Others tried to defend. Maybe there's been a misunderstanding. But the documents spoke louder. The proof was there, raw and undeniable. The image they had so carefully curated over the years began to crack. Questions started to appear. In the church group chat, I saw a screenshot sent by a friend. Does anyone know if the Marks are okay? I'm worried. Heard some strange rumors. In the neighborhood Facebook group, is the house on Hillview Drive empty today? I saw a utility truck parked out front. Then came the voice message. It arrived at 2:37 a.m. I was awake, sitting on the bed in my new apartment, a small, barely furnished studio, but mine. I bought everything in it with the money left over after cutting off their access. And even without luxury, that place smelled like freedom. The name on the notification made me freeze for a second. Mom. I hadn't seen that name on my screen since the day I was kicked out. I hesitated before pressing play. Her voice was unrecognizable. Megan. Please. Please. Stop. This is destroying everything. Everything. Your father won't leave the bedroom. People started talking at church. The pastor called. Your aunt already knows. I can't breathe. What are you doing to us? We're your family. The shaky breaths, the swallowed sobs. But still, something theatrical lingered, as if, even in despair, my mother was still performing for an invisible audience, and I wanted to scream. I wanted to yell with every ounce of strength I had left. And what did you destroy in me? I wanted to ask where the tears were when they left me outside with my suitcases like an expired guest. Where were the apologies when I sold my car to pay for my dad's surgery? When I spent sleepless nights on the phone with the bank, renegotiating debt after debt just to keep a roof over their heads? But in the silence of my cramped room, another voice started to rise, weak, trembling, but persistent. It wasn't rage anymore. It was something heavier, older, a feeling rooted in childhood, when I used to run through the house in Salt Lake, hoping my parents would see me, really see me. It was the voice of loneliness, of the forgotten girl, the daughter who did everything to be loved and ended up invisible. I curled up, hugging my knees, listening to that voice message for the 3rd time. Please, stop. And for the first time, I hesitated, because revenge did taste like justice, but it also tasted like emptiness, an emptiness that no amount of receipts could ever fill. But I hadn't decided yet. There were still more secrets, more masks ready to fall, and one truth no one was ready to face. Sometimes exposing other people's rot doesn't heal our pain. It just puts it on display. And deep down, I needed to know. Would they ever truly feel what I felt? With the little money I had left, after freezing all the cards, canceling the services, and finally stopping the charade of a perfect family, I rented a tiny studio in a forgotten part of Salt Lake City. It wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't what I deserved, but it was mine. And that, in itself, was revolutionary. The place smelled of old wood and cheap insulation. The walls were too thin, meaning I could hear every fight the couple in 103 had as if I were in the room with them. The heater made a noise like a choking cat, and the mattress I bought from an online thrift store had springs that seemed to have memories of their own, but I treated it like an altar, my sacred space, where I would rebuild what was left of me. On the second day, I sat on the floor, surrounded by boxes filled with more memories than useful things. I had to face it all: the childhood photos, the t-shirt from summer camp in 2008, the school planner with a silly note, "Remember to buy a gift for Mom. She deserves it." I opened a box that still carried the scent of the house on Hillview Drive. The same house I paid for, maintained, supported, and from which I was kicked out like an expired guest. Inside were picture frames. My face in all of them. Next to theirs. Smiling like I belonged there. I picked one up, stared at it for a few seconds, and with a dry snap, smashed the glass against the floor. A shard cut my finger, slicing the skin, but the pain was almost pleasant, cleansing. It was as if, in that warm blood trickling down, I was finally exorcising that fake image. I did what needed to be done. A ritual, a baptism. I threw it all away. Photos, letters, birthday cards that said, "You are our greatest blessing," even when I knew they were counting the cents from my deposits behind my back. Each object, an invisible cut. Each memory, a weight I needed to dig up in order to breathe. It was there, sitting among bags full of the past, that I realized what I felt wasn't guilt. It was grief. But not ordinary grief. I wasn't mourning them, the parents who were still alive, breathing in a house now cold and silent. I was mourning a version of myself that never had a chance to live. The girl who was a daughter only on paper. The woman who traded her youth for bills, who silenced her dreams to support two adults pretending to take care of her. I lost years. Years. Giving myself to people who only saw me as a wallet, as a bank balance, as an eternal plan B for every financial mess they made. That was the grief. For the sleepless nights. For the jobs I took just because they paid more, even if they drained me. For the appointment I postponed because my mom's checkup was more urgent. For everything I could have been, and wasn't, trying to be what they wanted. Not knowing where to put all of this inside me, I scheduled a session with my virtual therapist. She was the only constant in my days. And interestingly, the only person who never asked anything of me, except honesty. The connection was stable that afternoon. She appeared with her calm face lit by a soft, neutral light. "Megan, have you been sleeping well?" she asked, with that warm tone that sometimes annoyed me with how gentle it was. I shook my head, half smiling. "Only when the heater doesn't sound like it's drowning." She smiled briefly but didn't let the real question slip by. "How are you feeling about this separation?" I sighed. Empty. But at the same time, clean. Like I've removed a tumor. It hurt, it bled, but it was necessary. She nodded, typing something into her system. Then she paused, looked directly into the camera, and asked, "If they apologize, Megan, do you think you could forgive them?" The question hung in the air like smoke, toxic, dense. I was silent for a long moment. I almost felt a buzzing behind my eyes, as if my body was trying to avoid the answer. "I don't know," I admitted. "But it's not forgiveness that keeps me from moving on. It's the exhaustion. The exhaustion of always being the one to rebuild. It's always me who picks up the pieces, who takes the step back, who understands, who supports, who bends to keep the peace, while they go on like nothing happened." She looked at me with a mix of tenderness and respect, as if she recognized something in me that even I struggled to accept. I wasn't just hurt. I was exhausted. The session ended with practical guidance. Breathing, emotional writing, hydration. But none of it seemed enough. I didn't need mantras. I needed reparations. The next morning, a cold, gray Tuesday, with fog covering the window like a damp veil, my phone vibrated. The name on the screen made me freeze. Mom. It had been weeks since the last attempt at contact, since the desperate voice message, since the manipulative texts disguised as cries for help. But this time, I hesitated. For the first time, I didn't rush to answer. I let the phone vibrate until it almost stopped. The sound of my own heartbeat felt louder. A part of me said, "Don't answer. Protect yourself." But I answered. "Megan?" The voice on the other end was weak, hoarse, none of that passive-aggressive tone, none of the usual superiority. For the first time, it was just a woman. "Hi," I replied, cautiously, like someone stepping into a minefield. She was silent for a few seconds, the kind of silence that carries more weight than 1,000 words. "I know I'm the last person in the world who has the right to call you, but I had to try." I sighed, resting my forehead against the cold wall. "What do you want, Mom?" "To know if there's still a chance, to fix things, to say I'm sorry, to learn how to be your mother. Because I realized I never was." My legs weakened a little and I had to sit down. "And why now? After everything?" She choked on her words. "Because the silence is unbearable. The house is dark. James won't leave the bedroom. No one calls anymore. People have pulled away. And without you, I realized we never had anything real. Just appearances. Just comfort. And you were the only real thing." The tears came without warning. Hot. Immediate. But I didn't know if it was sadness or anger, or just the relief of finally hearing something I'd wished for my entire life. "I don't know what to do with that," I confessed, my voice breaking. "You destroyed everything in me. And now you want to rebuild with what?" "With truth." For the first time. The silence returned, but now it was different. Because on the other end of the line, she was no longer the woman who kicked me out with a fake smile. She was a mother. Trying. Maybe for the first time. But would it be enough? Was a single phone call enough to patch 30 years of abandonment disguised as care? Or was this just the beginning of another wound, about to open? "Megan, I'm sorry." The words fell onto my apartment floor like shattered dishes. Dry, bare, too late. On the other end of the line, my mother was breathing as if every syllable had been torn from her chest. For the first time in years, there was no makeup in her voice, no manipulative tone, no, "but try to understand our side," or "it was for your own good." Just silence. And that one sentence, suspended between us. I sat down slowly, feeling my heart pounding against my ribs, as if something inside me had been unlocked, or was threatening to fall apart entirely. I swallowed hard, trying to speak, but my throat felt sealed. 1 second. 2. Until finally, in a near whisper, I managed to say, "Why are you saying this? Because you're truly sorry? Or because no one else is paying your bills anymore?" Silence. Long. Then, she began to speak. Not quickly. Not like someone who rehearsed. But slowly. Like someone who had finally decided to cross her own inner desert. "I'm saying it. Because I used to think the worst thing that could happen was losing the house. Our reputation. Our comfort. But it wasn't. The worst was losing you. And I deserve what's happening. I know that now. I just didn't realize how small I really was." That caught me off guard. I wanted to scream at her, to say it wasn't enough, that it wasn't fair. That years of emotional and financial exploitation don't disappear with a single sentence. But deep down, a part of me, tired, lonely, starved for a sliver of recognition, cracked. "Why did you throw me out on my birthday, Mom? Why?" My voice came out shaky, louder than I intended. "Because we got used to thinking you could handle everything, that you were too strong to break. You always fixed everything, always found a way. When the bank called, it was you. When the car broke down, you. When the house was nearly foreclosed, you saved us. We thought it was your duty. And Megan, I don't know how to look at that now without feeling disgusted with myself." The tears came. Not like a flood, but like a gentle rain that seemed to fall from the inside out. I didn't know if I was crying out of anger, pain, or relief. "I wanted so badly for you to love me," I said softly, almost to myself. "We failed you, sweetheart, in every possible way. I know you probably don't believe anything we say anymore, but if I said nothing, If I didn't try, then yes, I'd be the monster you've seen all these years. I didn't see a monster. I saw my mother. And that's worse, because I waited for you my whole life. And when you finally looked at me, it was to send me away. She sobbed on the other end of the line. The crying wasn't dramatic. It was ugly, raw, uncontrolled. She tried to pull herself together but gave up. She only said, "I don't deserve you." We sat in silence, two women bound by blood and so many abysses. We talked for 2 hours, and during those hours I cried everything I had held in for years. So did she. Between sobs, she told me things I never imagined. About her fear of growing old in poverty, her shame at seeing her daughter more successful than they ever were, the frustration of feeling useless, and the cowardice of hiding it all behind demands and requests disguised as love. "You didn't have to pretend to be strong, Mom. I would have helped you anyway. But what you did was use me. Used me until I broke. I know. And if I could go back, I'd do it all differently. But now all I can do is ask, let me try. Even if you never come back." The next morning, I woke up to an email. Subject: "Thank you from James Marks. Megan, I'm not good with words. I think you know that. I'm looking for a job. Not because you told me to, but because I want to. I don't want to live off you anymore. I don't deserve to. If you can forgive me someday, great. If not, I understand. But I won't ask for anything. I just wanted to say, thank you for everything you did for us. And I'm sorry." I closed the laptop, leaned my head against the cold wall of the studio, took a deep breath. A part of me wanted to get up and run to their house, knock on the door, scream everything again. Another part wanted to pretend none of this had happened. But the newest part of me, the one just being born now after everything, just wanted peace. That day, I called my therapist and booked 2 sessions back to back. I knew I had a lot to process. Because forgiveness, I realized, doesn't come all at once. It comes in installments, in fragments. Today, we're not a perfect family. We don't see each other every week. There's no cozy family Christmas or smiling Instagram photos. But there is a group chat called The Three of Us, where once in a while my dad sends a ridiculous meme. My mom replies with an out-of-context LOL, and sometimes I ignore it. Other times I send back an emoji, and that's what we have. Something imperfect, but real. I still pay for my own therapy, and gladly. But I no longer pay their bills. No electricity, no water, no phone, none of those emergencies that magically always popped up on my payday. And the strangest thing? They're managing. My dad got a job as a stock clerk at a hardware store. It's not status. No suit and tie. But he says he feels useful, that he sleeps better now. My mom started baking cakes for the neighbors. She said she rediscovered her love for the kitchen, and for the first time, she spoke proudly about her own money. "I bought my meds this week all by myself," she wrote, and I read that sentence like someone watching a baby take their first steps. I stopped carrying people who didn't want to walk. I learned the difference between helping and sacrificing myself. I learned that love shouldn't feel like an unpayable debt. And most importantly, I learned that true revenge isn't destruction. It's survival. It's moving forward. It's showing that you don't need to be a martyr to be a daughter. That you can choose to protect yourself, even if they call you ungrateful. Because sometimes true power isn't in screaming, "I won." It's in whispering, "I'm free." And in that freedom, I found myself again. Because revenge, at its core, isn't about making someone else suffer. It's about no longer suffering for someone who never cared about your pain. It's about finally letting each person sink, or learn to swim, on their own. Now let me ask you something. If it were you, if you had spent years supporting those who were supposed to protect you, if you were thrown out on your birthday like an intruder in your own life, and then, once everything fell apart, they called to apologize, what would you do in my place? Would you forgive? Or would you let them face the consequences of their own choices? Tell me in the comments. I truly want to know. Because sometimes we only understand our own story when we hear it from another woman's voice. And now give me a rating. From 0 to 10, what score would you give this storyline? If this story stirred something in you, made you reflect, kept you hooked until the end, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because more powerful stories are on the way, and you won't want to miss them. Don't forget to tell us where you're watching from and what your name is. Oh, and click the video showing on screen now. It's another story of female revenge that will blow your mind. I promise. It's just as intense as this one. See you there.